Welcome to the AGC podcast. If you don't know us already, the Akuta Group of Companies is a British interior design collective with a portfolio of 6 international award-winning design brands. I'm your host, Tori, and in this pod we'll be revealing exactly what it takes to build a global design collective that works in some of the world's most exclusive postcodes. You'll meet the talented individuals behind each brand, as well as the many interesting people that have joined us along the way. Stay with us to hear more about how we got here, where we are going, and how we plan on being a force for good in this world of possibilities. We're super excited today to welcome Hattie Walker Arnott to the podcast. Hattie, I think of you as an AI guru, and you're here to help us navigate and unravel the very complicated world of AI and hopefully work out how we can adopt it into the property and interiors industry. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And what is your drink of choice today?
I've gone with was it called a Green Goddess?
The Green Goddess.
The Green Goddess.
Yes. I don't even remember what this one's called, but it's delicious.
They are very delicious. Cheers. Thank you for...
I'm quite pleased it's a non-alcoholic one as well. It's quite nice for an afternoon. Makes a change.
Exactly. The normal Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah, exactly. So Hattie, can we start by delving into your background and how you started your AI consultancy business?
Yes, of course. So I trained as a chartered surveyor. Mm-hmm. We worked in central London development, mainly commercial. I then went to work for a developer who was also investing into prop tech. So I then started to open my eyes to the prop tech world and see how much potential was there, given the general inefficiencies in our real estate world, which we can come on to. And so that led me to move to a prop tech startup. Mm-hmm. And it was when I was in-house in the prop tech world that I started to really see the potential for AI and why it was such a good fit for real estate. Mm-hmm. However, I felt that the prop tech world and the real estate world quite often are two separate.
Yeah.
And you really often find tech solutions being built for problems that the real estate world maybe doesn't...
realistic.
It's not a big enough problem.
Okay, yeah.
People will try and sell a house and then realise what a slow, difficult process it is, and someone will try and start a tech business to solve that problem and not realise that there are some reasons why it takes a long time. It obviously could be more efficient, but they're
as simple as they're probably thinking or
exactly
down into it further enough.
Yeah, so I think it's really important to see both sides. So I wanted to make sure that I still was working development, and I love the built environment. I love buildings, and so I spend now half of my time working on mainly large-scale regeneration projects, so mixed-use development projects, and then half my time helping other real estate developers, investors, and advisors learning about AI and what tools they can adopt to improve.
A varied role.
It is varied.
So you are our guru today, because I guess we want to bring it back to property and interiors,
of course,
and see sort of what various technologies actually exist, because I know it seems like there's endless options out there that we can look at. So if there's particular ones that you think are relevant or that I guess are being used frequently at the moment and the most popular ones,
and
get your opinion on those.
So I will start by saying that we are in the very early days. This is not dissimilar to saying in 2001 what are going to be the big websites in 20 years time. Some of them that were big then are still big today, but there's been a lot that's changed in the meantime, and I believe that we're in a similar phase with AI. Yeah. So I think what I find at the moment is more useful is to think about your use cases and where you can actually use it, and then try the different tools. But everything is changing so quickly that there's not yet one AI product that I would say to any investor, developer, interior designer, you need to buy this one thing and suddenly your life will be 10 times easier. Yeah. It's not that simple. But from an interiors perspective, I would say we can go from, at the very simple first stage for idea generation and things like mood boards, instead of using Pinterest. When you've got an idea in your head, you know what you're looking for. Yes. And you cannot find it on Pinterest. You
find elements of it, but there's not that one main idea that you're thinking.
Exactly. And now you can use Midjourney, ChatGPT, even any image generator to generate those images that are in your head.
It's amazing. Our designers have actually started using that. I haven't used it myself yet, but from what's been produced, that people are saying they've typed in the sort of whatever you need to put in there, and then the image that comes out is incredible, what it comes up with, and how it does look like a really well done CGI. Yeah, and it's just incredible how that tech is already always there and for free.
It's a huge amount is for free, and then often there'll be add-ons to get more advanced options. And I think it's important as well, thinking that for anyone who's in the design industry, the idea of visualizing an idea is very simple. It's quite easy for someone to suggest something to you and for you to be able to imagine it. But not everyone has that. So actually the ability to translate your ideas into something visual that then can be shared with the client or whoever, the kind of relevant stakeholders, is really powerful. And I don't think we should underestimate that.
Yeah, 100%, because it gives them a proper idea. You're almost skipping so many steps though, by already getting to that and giving them an image and saying, this is what it's going to look like. But actually for them, it's probably the best way of doing it and getting an idea of how it will look.
Exactly. And then you can kind of move, so we can go from there through to much more controlled design generation and use it for rendering, and then right through to actual designing buildings. That's, from my perspective, that's really where we want to get to. And
is that being implemented much already?
So there's some really interesting tools, so for example, there's an organization called Parallelo. There's a company called Delve, which is Google's own generative design platform for buildings. And what these tools are good at doing at the moment is taking a bare piece of land, so taking a site, and you can give it certain instructions. So you might say, like, I want 50% site coverage, and I want it to have the most efficient layout of 50% 2 beds, 25% 3 beds, and the rest studios, whatever it might be. And what some tools are becoming very good at now is automatically creating the most efficient floor plans for those buildings.
So almost space planning, I guess.
It's space planning, yeah. So effectively close to instant space planning.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is probably quite scary for a lot of people that is their job. It's to planning the spaces and thinking about it.
Yeah.
I guess from a design point of view, if we were to do that as well, but then it's sort of there to help. I guess you can use it in a way that is more helpful than worrying, and just make sure that you're using it to the best it can be used, I guess, and as a helpful tool.
Rather, you're absolutely right. I think there is a lot of fear, and we can come on to why I think it's not a useful thing to be worried about. But, architects are, in my opinion, and I think it's fair to say, overworked and underpaid. Mm-hmm. And I have yet to meet an architect who loves spending their days producing a draw schedule.
Yeah.
These are things why do people go into architecture? Probably they are very intelligent, very creative, and very probably quite mathematical as well. And having to spend literally hours and hours and days of your life, tweaking floor plans, that's not, in my opinion, a good use of a good architect's time.
So they'll probably embrace it.
I hope so. The architects, maybe there's a biased, but the architects that I meet tend to be quite excited by it, rather than too fearful. And I think there'll always be a space for the very bespoke buildings, for people who are building their own homes and want something completely original, that there'll be a space for that as well, for the architects who want to focus on that. And the other key point here is about, you can now get a tool to generate you 100 different floor plans in, it's not quite instant, let's say, in an afternoon.
Yeah.
Which obviously could have taken a very long time previously. Yeah. But you need an architect who has real life experience of delivering buildings to be able to take those floor plans and to consider things like the buildability of them, and then also just how people will naturally flow around them.
Yeah.
So it's not just
a simple, easy solution and then it's fixed.
Exactly. And there's no right answer. It's not like any one single development site has one optimal scheme that will be best for all stakeholders.
And I guess for the property side of things, there's probably so many other tech programs out there that are covered for various other reasons and more sales side of things. And I'm not too sure what's out there on the property side, but then, it's probably endless.
Yeah, so actually it just will, going back a minute for the image generation, the kind of the next stage from just creating a mood board is actually being able to control the parts of the image that you're changing. And I think this is really exciting for developers and designers because it becomes so much quicker. Previously, if you had an architect drawing up a scheme for you, if you wanted something changed, it'd have to go back and they'd spend a couple of weeks and then they'd come back with the next iteration 2 weeks later, and then you say, okay, that's not quite right, let's change this. And what happens in the process of development is then after only a few of those iterations, you end up going to your pre-app meeting with the council, and the council say, we kind of like this, we kind of like that, but can you change X, Y, Z? And then you just change X, Y, Z, and the things that they were already happy with stay as they are. And what I think we can really do with the design, both for interiors and for development, is have a much more robust iterative design process before any decisions actually have to be made. So what I really hope is that we get to a point where before anyone's going to pre-app, they're not just going to pre-app with something that's kind of quite blocky and doesn't have much detail. They're going to pre-app having looked at 50 different designs, shapes, styles, and feeling as the client much more, or as the developer, much more confident that that's the building they want to
because they've gone through so many variations of it and decided that is the one they want.
And I think it should result in better designs, and I would hope again for the interiors world doing the same thing, so you don't have clients being like, oh wait, but what about if we try it in this colour or that?
Well, I didn't know it would ever look like that. And then at least you can give them, from the beginning, you can give them the best idea. And there's less room for elements going wrong, I guess, as well. And I think it's pretty impressive what I've seen so far with sort of the mid-journey side of things. And I guess for us on the interior side, those are probably going to be the tech elements that will shape our industry more, and then I guess we'll see what comes next.
So you as well,
I'm sure they'll keep developing, and then there will be some other tech in store that changes something else.
And I think that's hot. A really key point, which is about, as I say, not being able to necessarily predict. So Apple have obviously just come out with their Vision Pro, which is their new VR goggles. Meta have their Ray-Bans with which have a little computer.
I don't think I've seen those. Oh wow, that's impressive. Already they've got products like that.
And So again, have you guys ever used Unreal Engine or program? So
I'm not sure about that.
it's like a 3D render for so again, for big schemes, you can you can put on VR goggles and walk through. And these used to be very expensive and very time consuming to make. The price and the time it takes to make them is getting cheaper and cheaper and quicker. And so again, I can imagine a world where that becomes the absolute norm because it's so easy. So every scheme is in a VR environment.
And I think that's part of it. It was usually unobtainable because it was so expensive, or it was just so limited in people using it. So you wouldn't come across the tech that much. But now it seems to be everywhere. It's getting cheaper. You've got so many free apps to use as well that it's sort of, you have to just, you embrace it and then you realise it's everywhere.
Yeah, I think, and with tech like this, if you look back to, again, if we go back to kind of the internet and their mobile devices, when the internet was new, someone could have come up with the idea of ordering a cab on the internet, but it only became really viable to have an organization like Uber when everyone had, or there was enough adoption of smartphones, so everyone had the internet in their hand.
Yeah.
And I think with the tools like Apple Vision Pro, so many new apps will come from it. And an obvious thing that I suspect will happen is, we work off floor plans, right? And that's actually, if you think about it, it's a pretty blunt tool for recording a space. And so there are some really interesting products that you guys should look at. One called Polycam, which uses the LiDAR in an iPhone. So if you've got a relatively new iPhone, you can use that app and you can just walk around the room and create a 3D model of that room. And at the moment, it's not accurate enough to generate full detailed designs, but I can see the path to a world where we don't do floor plans anymore because it's so easy to get a properly accurate, effectively like a BIM model, but of any room that you and I walk into, and then you can.
Impressive. Do you see that as big, sort of the next thing in interiors, I guess, for the AI side of things?
I could see it. So this is, I guess, the if that tech can become accurate enough, if it can, if we could come in here and get a 3D scan of this room that's within a centimetre, then surely that would be so much easier.
Yeah, because I think with Midjourney and those ones out there, they're only going to improve, but they're already in existence. So it's what's the next thing that's going to happen and change it for everyone, make everyone's lives so much easier.
Yeah.
And I guess it's something like that which will speed up so much time. And then some surveyors out of business.
Well, or they become the ones who, get really good at going around and doing the scans and making sure that they're all accurate, whatever it might be. So that would be, for me, a kind of next on the roadmap for interiors, and you would, you could then end up with a tool, so you could then layer the Midjourney image generation over it. So then you can say, what in this room, what would it look like if we painted it, or
so use them all together.
And exactly, and layer them all on top of each other.
So how, because it's constantly changing and there's so many new ones coming out, how are we meant to keep on top of it? Just be aware of what is coming out and what we should be using, because there's no one place to check it. Obviously listening to things and trying to build your awareness, but is there an easy answer to that?
From a high level, I actually love The Economist. If you want just a really kind of rational calm, sensible, but quite intelligent view. They have got some really good AI research and programs. But no, otherwise, there is a lot of noise. It is very noisy, and that's, I suppose, part of what I try to do is to work out what is just, news. Yeah, grabbing headlines and what's real.
Actually newsworthy.
Yeah,
and worth looking into. Would you, if a new tech came out, would you look into? Are you constantly checking out what's new and what you think is realistic and being used?
Yeah, exactly, and also just asking people for being able to kind of go to that my general network of tech people and saying, look, I've got this idea. Is this something your company could actually do? And I had this example this week, trying to find a solution for change of use, floor plan generation. So going back to that development point, at the moment, tools are pretty good at designing a bare site. And so a bare piece of land, what we haven't quite got so good at yet, or there's some quite cool companies. From the commercial office side, there's a really good company called Layout, who are very good at space planning, who are worth watching. But I was trying to find a use case, which was to move between use classes. And I asked like 3 different companies, and they were all like, no, it's in our tech roadmap, it's not happening yet, and it's
not quite there.
It's not quite there. But I would say, instead of trying to necessarily feel like, oh God, I've got to keep on top of everything, just getting really good at using ChatGPT and making it part of your daily life is really quite powerful.
Yeah.
And
we've been digging a lot in work into this. We've got a team who are looking at AI and how we can use it and make it more streamlined. And it's all about what you input and then getting out. So the more you use it, the better you get used to it. Yeah, and you know what you need to be inputting to get the best answer. But I think it's to start with, if you're not quite aware of it and you ask it one sentence and expect it to come out with something exactly what you want.
Yeah.
It's not there yet, but it's just using it more frequently and realising what it needs from you as well. But it's so clever what it produces as well. So the sales team, that's sort of the tech that we would end up using is ChatGPT and that side of it. And then the designers would be more on the mid-journey. Yeah, so ChatGPT, I guess it's a combination, isn't it?
And do you, are you Microsoft based? Do you use like Word and things like that? Yeah. Have you looked at Copilot Pro yet?
No.
Okay, this is something we will now. You definitely should. So, obviously, ChatGPT is effectively trained on the internet and loads of books. So that's where it kind of gets its knowledge base from. Microsoft Copilot Pro creates effectively a ChatGPT for your own files.
Oh, wow.
So it's like a mega search. So you can start, the kind of use case that I would have would be like, what was that building that I looked at a project on 3 years ago? And I think it was in South Wales. And it would come back saying like, on site R2, you looked at 3 options. These were the options. This was the project team that were involved. And importantly, it has its sources. So you can click and say, okay, that was the development committee paper that went out on the, April 2019.
Which folder it's sat in and everything like that. And that's amazing.
It's really powerful.
Yeah.
So that's, and I think this again is when you get to the question about, should we be worried about our jobs? The term that Microsoft have tried to coin is this concept of digital debt, which is the amount of time all of us spend churning through emails, trying to arrange meetings. Like that time it takes a lot of time, right?
Yeah.
And so what their angle is, obviously we should be cynical of what Microsoft say when they're selling a product, which is an AI product for us all to use. But their angle is that, we all spend too much time writing emails, sending emails, doing really, drafting things, and AI can help us with that. So it should be reducing.
I guess also if it's picking up on, I don't know if the Copilot can do this, but if it's picking up on your emails and how you've worded things before and your style of writing, and it automatically knows what you're likely to put together, then that's just complete time saver as well, because that's taking it out of even inputting it into anywhere. And
it's in your environment, so it's like on your Word ribbon. There's just Copilot just sitting there, and I
feel like that's a scary thought, because you think, well, what's it going to do next? It's going to be thinking ahead for you. Thinking, okay, they're going to want to respond to this email, so it'll already probably have this template ready to go. And you just need to say yes, fine. It's exciting, but it's scary how clever it is, I think, already.
We're going to have to get really good at thinking more critically. That's kind of going to be the key skill, rather than just like data generation.
Exactly.
That becomes really easy.
So do you think we're right in being wary about it, or we need to be embracing it? Whoever doesn't embrace it is going to be left behind, essentially.
Well, so I think for that question, in many scenarios, the people who don't embrace it just end up slightly worse off, because, if I'm drafting a document, and I'll give you an example. Recently, I had to respond to a PINS notice. So for a public procurement project, a notice where they've got like a list of different things you have to respond to. And I wrote the response myself with my own
with your mind?
With my own mind. Let's see how long that lasts. But I got it to check that, there's a long list of requirements that I have to include in this document. Have I included everything?
Yeah.
And, if you tried to just answer them all with Copilot or ChatGPT, it would come up with something quite generic rubbish.
Yeah.
So that's not going to win. But the person who is using it as an assistant is probably going to be better off than someone who sent in that big response and either checked manually or didn't check that all the, boxes were ticked. So I think there's a lot of it which makes our lives easier.
Yeah.
We do need to worry about it, because, we've seen things like deepfakes and how easy it is to create content now. So we need to be mindful of that. And also, I take it you guys have a team subscription to ChatGPT.
Yes. Yeah.
Good.
So why? What's right and what's wrong?
Because you shouldn't put any private data into ChatGPT.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's a team one.
Because it's the large language model, which is effectively what powers it, will train upon some of your inputs if you're not using the right format.
So it can pull out, it can extract some of the content that you're putting in.
Yeah. And like arguably it would be such, if you think how much ChatGPT is being used, it should be such a minuscule amount that I guess it's then there for the taking. Exactly.
It then exists in that system.
Yeah.
Okay. So we should be scared on do you think on a wider level? Is that if step outside AI?
Yeah.
At a bigger level, AI is gradually looking into every bit of life, isn't it?
I think, so the way I like to think about it is that, what are we afraid of? We are afraid that we will operate in a world which has an intelligence that is greater than ours and which doesn't have our interests at heart, doesn't have human interests at heart. Like, right, that's the key concern. And I think in terms of the operating in a world of greater intelligence is not something we should necessarily fear, because we actually operate in a world of intelligence that we don't understand a lot of. We don't understand truly sort of how the birds migrate across the globe. once a year. That's an intelligence that we don't understand how it works, but we can be comfortable in our environment. So I think the fact of a greater intelligence, and it's how you define intelligence, right?
Exactly. Yeah, so I remember listening to a podcast on it, and it changed my thinking, because I think before then I was thinking, everything like ChatGPT it's thinking for itself. And then it just flipping it, saying it's not thinking, it's extracting elements of everything. So it's as clever as that is, it's not going to create its own opinion of things. It might eventually create some sort of opinion based on all of that, but it's not thinking for itself. It's just using what's in existence already.
The way that I feel comfortable about it, the only way that I have found to become comfortable so far is if you think about a parent and a child, and how, at first the parent is more intelligent and teaches the child things, and the child learns and learns and learns. And then in many cases, the child becomes more intelligent than the parent. But that child, if it's been brought up well with good values and it loves its parent and it knows that its parent is important, will later in life look after that parent. And that's because the values of that child are is different to its intelligence.
Okay.
And so what's important is that we teach the AI to have human-centric values.
Yes. And saying, I think there is another video that we watched as a team, and it said about saying please and thank you.
Yeah.
Seeing that makes a difference, because it's just, I guess, on the fact of what you're saying about the values, and it's whether it makes a difference to what it comes. I think it does make a difference to what it comes back to you with, but it's also, that's how interaction should be. It's not just demanding everything, that you can't just demand it and expect to get it.
Exactly.
Back.
Yeah.
So what are your favourite apps?
Do you know what?
Anything that we should all be looking at or downloading?
I would, the ChatGPT iPhone app, do you use that, or do you use it on your computer?
Just on the computer, yeah.
So that is really good, and it's got really good voice recognition. And what I find quite exciting about that is I think I can see one of the ways that AI can help with the natural language processing is that I think we will move quite quickly away from a world where we're all on our, typing on our phones like this, because as soon as voice recognition becomes good enough, we don't need to type everything out letter by letter on our iPhones. And so I just love, I will use the ChatGPT app, and it's funny, it seems like it hasn't kind of been adopted as much as the web-based program, but
I think because you think, I would think of it more as a work solution, rather than for anything. I wouldn't ever think of using it outside of work, but I guess actually, why not? But I think it's because I haven't learnt to use it quickly enough yet. So for me, I wouldn't think to go to it for anything.
Yeah, of
because
course.
if I'm writing something for my own, any personal emails, it's just quicker to write it.
Yeah.
But I guess it's how you learn to use it, and then you realise the actual benefits that you can get from it outside of work as well.
Yeah, so really basic use cases. I the other day was walking, and one of my plants died on my balcony, and so I literally was just, instead of trying to type it out, it's just like, what should I do with a dead rosemary plant in February? Is that going to come back to life? How do I know? And importantly, that's the kind of stuff that the level of accuracy of that information is kind of good enough.
Yeah.
Because the only alternative that I was going to do was kind of skim Google.
Yeah.
And so in that scenario, when I didn't need a really precise, accurate answer, I just wanted to get an idea, it was fine.
Which is what I would go to Google.
Yeah, exactly.
And expect to find the answer. But maybe that's already dated, because if you use ChatGPT and get more of a definite answer.
Well, it's not more definite, and we must remember that it's not more definite, but it's just
more relevant as to what it comes back to you with.
It's just easier to digest, because it's one it's one simple paragraph instead of that kind of constant like flicking through a million different Google.
Because now how Google comes up with the questions and then you flick through all those answers. That's what I would use. But
which admittedly it's the same thing, right? Yeah, that's Google's kind of edging into using AI.
Yeah,
edging, but into AI.
So that would be your top choice. That would be your favorite.
That honestly is it's the thing that I use most. Anything else that I use, is more out of curiosity and like, I'll try it and then see how it goes. Mm-hmm. But that is the most robust, and that's something that's just become a normal part of my life.
Yeah, and that's for everything. So personal, work, all sorts. Is there any new AI that we need to be looking out for? Various.
Again, not to sound like I'm a spokesperson for ChatGPT, because I do love Copilot Pro and I do really recommend it. Like, that is really good.
Yeah.
But with ChatGPT, they have now ways that you can plug into different apps. So I don't know if you guys are trying that, but if you find yourself, so one use case for me is or for the more traditional property industry is you get sent loads of brochures of investment sales and sites coming to the market. And I 8 years ago spent a huge amount of my time typing up the information from those brochures into Excel spreadsheets. That was just like one of my jobs, one of the many vital roles. And now you can get you can basically layer plugins, so you can get a PDF reader and then get that into something which converts things straight into Excel. So that kind of process, like anytime you find yourself doing a process which is kind of taking information from one place and putting it somewhere else, there is probably a way to use maybe 2 plugins and making that process automatic to at least a degree. So in that brochure example, it's not perfect. It doesn't capture all the information every time, but it's probably, if it gets across 60% or 70% of the information that you would otherwise have to type out word by word, like that's really quite time saving.
I find I get lost in a rabbit hole with things like that though, because you realise that there's probably something you can be doing, and then you end up looking into it, thinking, what's the way to do it? And then after about half an hour, you think, I could have just done it.
Yeah.
But I guess then for next time that it actually exists.
Exactly.
And it's something you can use to
it's all about setting up systems. So if there are things in your day-to-day that you find constantly, I mean, an obvious one as well is I love writing. And this again goes back to the ability of AI to help us interact on our own terms with computers. I like writing. I've not yet found like a tablet that I prefer to writing in a notebook. So what I will often do is, for a meeting that I need to record the notes after, is just take a picture on my ChatGPT app on my phone, and it just types it all up, and then you just put it into an email, put it wherever you need to go. And that, that tech is not particularly new, the kind of optical character recognition, but it's become a lot better since tools like ChatGPT have so much more data effectively to be trained on.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much. There's a lot to take on from that, a lot to start using and trying. I think trying. Yeah. And then see how we get on and wait for the next thing to come out, which I'm sure won't be long.
It won't be long. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Hattie. That's been really informative, and hopefully we can come back here again in a few months and sit down and discover what's next.
Yeah, it is changing fast.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Tori.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Interior Insider. Remember to subscribe to be the first to listen to our latest episodes, and be sure to comment who you'd like to hear from next. Speak soon.